So thank you everybody for hanging around. This will not be as say refined a presentation as what John was doing. More freeform. What I'd like to show is using the new ribbon. I think command bar editor is what it's called, and this is something that I've had to use recently. It's in preview now. It's really cool. There are definitely some limitations, and like I said, it's preview, so there are bugs. There's stuff that it will be able to handle and doesn't. There's stuff that it'll never be able to handle. So I just wanted to share that and some of the things I learned, and hopefully it'll help you if you find some ways that you'd be able to use it. So the traditional way that we'd edit the ribbons in a model-driven app, you either export it to XML and then you spend a week figuring that out. The other way that people would do it is use the Ribbon Workbench. So this was built by Scott Duro, 15 years ago, and it's awesome for everything it does. And if you're not familiar with it, it does the job. So you can drag your buttons on, and you define commands. So command is, usually calls from JavaScript to do something. And then you can define parameters for that. You can also do display rules, like when should the button show up, and enable rules, which are when should the button be clickable. So it might be disabled, that sort of thing. And this is fine. It's not bad, especially for a non-Microsoft tool. So if you go to the Microsoft Docs, it'll tell you to run this tool to edit the buttons, right? So it's great. But Microsoft came out with, I guess they have been pushing PowerFX, which is the kind of commanding language in Canvas apps. And so what they want to do is give a way to for the users to put PowerFX commands behind these buttons. So instead of writing JavaScript to do something, they want to have a button and you click on it and it executes some PowerFX scripts. And that's what I'm going to look at now. So the Ribbon Workbench, you start with a solution. You start with an empty solution with just your entity in it. Make some changes to it and go from there. For the new commanding button, it's a little interesting because it's in preview. It's double preview. You start with your app, and you'll go to edit and then edit in preview. So we're completely ignoring the solutions at this point. So you will edit the app in preview mode. And this is kind of like the new page builder. So this is how you would design apps, going forward. And if you want to add buttons, so I guess just a note, these aren't they don't refresh immediately. They're not bulletproof as you're building them. I've seen a lot of weird things. So I have all of these set up for the account. I'm going to try and build them for the contact record as well. But if they're not showing, that's why I can show a working demo on the account record. So building these on the contact, you'd find the table that you want to edit, and then expand and edit command bar preview. And so this is kind of the new, the double preview option. So you do have the options of where you want to change the buttons. So the main grid is kind of back here. The form is when you're looking at the record. Subgrid is a grid on the form, and then associated is through the related records. So the first one I'm going to show is adding a button to the main form. And this is going to be really easy. We're going to add a form. We're going to make it so you click that button and it updates a field on your contact record. So to add a new button, we go to the new command option. You can kind of drag it around. To be honest, the ordering of this doesn't always work. I have them show up backwards. I have them show up in no discernible order sometimes. Sometimes it works great. Sometimes I have no idea what's going on. So you fill in the options. So the first one, we're going to have this, let's say update or promote user. And what we're going to have this do is give them a new job title. What I do like about this is you don't have to use an icon, and in the past it would have had like an empty space. You can have a custom web resource, or what I think is awesome is it'll show you the system icons that you can use. So there's probably going to be something here that's close enough if you don't want to go through the hassle of finding the right type of icon and uploading it and all that stuff. So let's see. So we're promoting the person, see if we have something for currency. No. Well, they get a plus because they're moving on up. So these are the same properties that you have in the ribbon workbench. The tooltip title is kind of what shows when you hover over it. And you want to make these all as helpful as possible, of course, for accessibility. And down at the bottom, this is kind of where the magic happens. So for the actions, we still have the option to run JavaScript. And so we can pick a JavaScript library and call a function. So I'm going to show that a little bit later. But what's really cool is running a formula. And this might look familiar if you are used to doing Canvas apps. And what we have are two formulas, one for the action to do when you click it, and one for determining the visibility of that button. So if you want to, so we're going to change the job title for the user. So the way that you do that in the in Power Effects is through patch, and the layout, or sorry, the parameters are the source, what you're updating. We go self.selected.item. So this is kind of longhand, I guess, for the current record. So we're updating a contact, it's this current contact. And then you can list out the properties that you're going to update. So this displays the labels of the field, so you don't have to know the schema name. You can start typing it out and it'll show it for you. So we'll make this the president. And that's it. So now we'll save and publish this. And hopefully when we go to our contact record, what we'll see is this button, that icon, and when you click it, it does that action. And so this is, kind of it's a very trivial example, right? Changing a field, because you can just update that field on the form. However, it does allow us to do a couple of really cool things in the background. So we've got our button, and say our job title is here, currently the owner. Click our button, it blows up. We do get some good errors. Oh, not in this case, just says something went wrong. If you have the console app, sometimes it will show you good errors that come out of this process as well, if you're comfortable reading them. I'll try this one more time and then kind of show what it looks like on the account version. But what it will do is it will, so as part of that patch, what it does is updates the field in the database and then refreshes it on the form. So I'll start opening my contact as well, or sorry, opening up the account as well. Also, sometimes when you're running it, like while you're editing, the command bar just doesn't load. or it takes a really long time to load. All right, so okay, so there we go. It was really kind of seamless. It just updated the job title, nice and smooth. Now, like I said, it was trivial example because you can just change that field, but we can use those same mechanics to update hidden fields from the user. So you might have a process where you want an approve button and a reject button. So when you click it, you're setting a field in the background that the user doesn't have access to on their own. So you're able to kind of chain those actions together to and force the user through those mechanics. The other thing that I think is really cool is extending that just a little bit. Have a new field on your record that you're setting from this button, but you can have a Power Automate flow set up to run when that field change. So essentially, this is now, this button is run my flow, and it updates a field which triggers that flow running in the background. So just by a simple action, we're able to really extend it out for for a couple different scenarios. So so that's cool. It's not really helpful for the user. So if you'd noticed when so I'll just do this again, change the job title and save it, right? When I click the user, it's going to update the job title field, but it doesn't really tell me anything. So we can extend this a tiny bit further. So we have our patch. This is going to update that field. Next thing we can do is notify the user, and this will put a ribbon at the top, so that way there's some feedback for the user, so that they know something happened and they're not just kind of guessing or clicking over and over. So we have a couple different notification types. I'll do success because this is a happy day. And so same sort of thing, if all goes well, what's going to happen is set the field, then we get the notification, and it looks kind of cool. And again, if we're doing like that flow thing, this is where you can say, synchronize my record, submit this thing, kick off my flow, and then you tell the user that, yes, in fact, this was successful. Okay, and on the on the account record where I have this set up, because I don't expect anything to work when I'm actually building it. Give it a second to open. We'll see that as well. So, so that would be making updates to your current record from a form. When we have next thing that we can do is creating related records. And this is taking its time. So creating a related record is going to be really similar to that. We're doing a patch, but it's not going to be a patch to the current record where we have, we're showing patch the contacts on this item. What we can do is kind of cool too. You can just duplicate your button and then change what you need to. We'll create a task. It doesn't have to be related to this. It could be just some other record that you want to create. Let me add a check mark. And the formula here is going to be pretty similar, except instead of patch, it's going to be tasks. And we can say, instead of the current item, we're creating a new record. So it would be defaults on tasks. You know, I'm going to create an account because it gets weird about what things are included. And account name. And the primary contact would be self.selected.item. So creating a new record, setting some traditional fields, but then also setting a lookup back to our current record. So, and then showing a notification on that. So, you know, good way to spin up related records. You can also use the same sort of mechanic to do cloning as well. So I'm going to go back to the contact, and instead of publish this, and I'm going to get off the main form for a moment, and we'll go to the accounts list, or the main grid for this type of record. And cloning it. So this is a feature that we could build pretty cool in the preview, and then Microsoft realized it wasn't quite 100%, so they started pulling out features. Now we can't really do it, or not as well as we were able to. And so I'll show you what I mean by that. All right, so we have our, say, clone contact button. It's going to be a new, sure, that works. And so this one we're going to do a little differently. We're going to have an action here. We're going to create a new record, just like we were looking at in our update action. So we're going to do a patch. We're going to be creating a new contact record. This defaults contacts, shows what we're going to be starting with. Then we can fill in our fields. So this is a little different than before, because all of our first names we're pulling from our contact. So you can say, you know, this is all, if you're not familiar, this is you know, like a JSON notation. So this is what we're setting, and then the value that we're setting it from is going to be self-selected item dot first name. There we go. I'm going to give this copy of, just so that we can see it's a little different. I'll set the last name as well. So this should do a you know, pretty simple clone of the contact, a shallow copy of the contact. So where it was really cool before is leverage more of the Power Effects functions. So you could do things like, I can show you what I can put in a link for the blog post as well, but it would allow you to you could create your new record, save that in a variable. So this will be your cloned record, and then you could iterate under all the related things. So you could clone an account and all its contacts, and update, you know, the lookup on the child contacts, or kind of a more practical example, you could clone an invoice and the products on it, and update it for the new customer. So you used to be able to do that as part of the preview. but they revoked that set function from the preview mode. So what that looks like for the account, so I'm just going to show it on the account. I'm not even going to try and get the contacts working now. But what that looks like on the accounts form, just give me 1 second. Right, so if we have our clone account, you see it's pretty smooth and it creates our copy of record here. So in this case, we're just copying the account name and the phone number. So yeah, so pretty simple, but like I said, really limited functionality since we're not able to kind of get that deeper clone. But that's one of those things that I would expect will be coming in time, and hopefully sooner rather than later, because I think I'll put the I'll include a link. Oh, here it is, from October, where Juka here is showing an example of a clone, and that's exactly what he's doing. Doing a patch creating the records, doing a notify, and also doing a set. Right. So this is cloning a product and then related items under the product. So it was there, probably just not quite at that level where they want it to be. So pulled out temporarily and hopefully should be coming back soon. So last thing I want to show is pretty cool, and then I want to talk about some of the issues and resources that you can have for it. Last thing I want to show is opening a dialog from these buttons. So you can do that. You can navigate to a Canvas app or a custom page. What I like to do is, oh, sorry, I want to show one more thing though that I think is really cool. Before I get to that though, we're looking at the cloning, and what I didn't show is how you setting the visibility for that. So I'm gonna get back to the account and show you how I have that set up. So the visibility here is defined on the command bar, and in this case, we only want the clone to run if you select a single item. So we're using the expression to count the number of rows that are selected, and then if it's exactly one, then show that button. And that, we can see that where it's not there now, you select it and it shows, select a second one and it's gone again. So, that type of behavior would require at least some JavaScript, doing it the traditional way. But you're able to do it with these expressions now. Some of these visibility expressions are great, some are not. So there's a bug right now where if you are looking at an option set, so you should be able to do something like, let's get on this one for a sec. You should be able to do something like if the selected item, if the account rating equals, I think that's a number, but let's say it was a drop down for a minute, then you could do something like 5-star, whatever. So this should work, but there's a bug where it can't, or it doesn't at the moment. So you have to work around that by getting the label of the drop down and then checking if the label equals the text of what you're trying to match to. So it's fine. Like I said, it's in preview, so it's not 100%, but it is a really, really strong starting point and kind of showing what will be available soon, and hopefully in how powerful that can be. But my favorite thing so far is it's something that we could do in the Ribbon Workbench before, which is to launch a dialog. And it's not strictly a dialog in the traditional like CRM sense, but this is, so in this case, we have a button invoking some JavaScript. JavaScript opens up the a custom web resource. So, this is just a blank HTML page, or nearly blank HTML page. But what you can do, and what I have done, which makes this really awesome, is like you can build a React app. So you might have a complex like dialog process where if you like coding, you can have like follow-up questions here, and then have some logic where the user clicks the button and it goes out and does some stuff and presents a message, and you kind of have this interactive experience here. Where obviously all of that is more code intensive, and it's not really related to the buttons, but just being able to wire it up very quickly, I think makes it really cool. So that launcher JavaScript is pretty straightforward, and for, like I said, for the Canvas app pages, you can just do that natively with a PowerFX command. But it's very easy to have a button that does some JavaScript as well. So some of the issues that I've seen, or issues or limitations, you can't do anything with the out-of-the-box buttons, so you can't hide them, and you can't do anything with the with legacy buttons. So anything that's been added to through the Ribbon Workbench, you can't update it here. And I think the inverse of that's true as well. So when you add a button here, you can't see it in the Ribbon Workbench. It doesn't show up as like that Ribbon diff XML, that you might be used to seeing. So it really is siloed, and that can cause a problem where you have things, like you hit a cliff of what's possible here. So, with traditional buttons, you can set visibility based on like a JavaScript function, or you can have multiple actions, right? You can't combine actions in this. So you can run a formula, or you can call it JavaScript, but you can't do both. You can't do like two JavaScript calls. So it's unfortunate when you get to, you can build out this button in the new manner, but then you hit one of those limitations, and if it's enough of a limitation, you kind of have to tear it down and start over the old way. But hopefully, like I said, this is a preview, so hopefully this should be happening less and less frequently over time. There are only a subset of the commands available. So I mentioned the set button was one of them, or the set function. The full list, I'll put this in the comments in the chat as well, but there is a bunch of them that aren't handled. Some of them make sense, like back, or whatever. There are some of them that make sense, but not having the set function means you can't use variables, which means you can't create the record and then get at some of the related things. Other issues I've seen, the metadata is slow to refresh. Sometimes it doesn't at all. Sometimes it can be challenging to debug because you're not sure if you're actually testing what you think you are. It might have been the previous version. It might have been 2 versions back, and none of them have refreshed yet. So that can be a little trying sometimes. Especially if you're when you're getting your feet wet with this, like everybody has to at some point, right? You make a change, you go to test it, it doesn't have the effect that you think it will, so you think you're wrong. Well, it might have been right, and you just had no way to verify it because it was too slow to verify. So I have noticed, so you can publish kind of from the editor, you can get to the component library, and this is the Canvas app designer, where you're able to edit these in kind of a larger, kind of friendlier looking way, and that's helpful. I found that to be helpful. You can also have it refresh the metadata for the ribbon. And there's one of these. Sorry, I'm jumping around a lot. There's one of the buttons from that lets you. I think if you do a play from here, then it lets you get like a special diagnostic button. So I'm gonna see if I can find that. This is the editor using the Canvas apps editor. So each of these are your different commands that you have set up. So this is our promote user command, and you have a little bit more of the options to set here. It's basically all the same stuff as before. You know, title, tooltip, visibility, and your select action. So it will let you build invalid. I believe it'll let you build invalid expressions here using things like the set command, which aren't really allowed and don't work. So it's nice. It's nice to use here, but also there's some hazards with it, I guess. You can also only do basic buttons. You can't do flyout buttons. You can't do like sub buttons, and things like that you can do in the ribbon workbench. If you look at those, if we look at the Microsoft Docs and what its limitations are, they do talk about a lot of these items. They'll say, it can only do this. So, Dataverse is the only data source. However, and then it kind of gets into other cases where you can kind of do something. So, definitely limitations to it, but there's a sweet spot of easy things that you can do very quickly, and I like that a lot. What I was talking about for the diagnostic tool is if you're in the command editor and you hit the play button, that's going to launch your app. And I think all that does is it adds a ribbon debug URL. So you could probably do this outside of the app and just tick this on to onto your app URL. But what that does is it shows this command checker button in the ribbon. So when you launch that, it shows kind of lets you drill into more for all of the different buttons that you have. So if we look at the clone account, you can see details about the properties, what actions it's going to do, and that sort of thing. To be honest, I haven't found a whole lot of use for this, or I haven't really found it to be helpful yet. I know for the clone account, we have a display rule based on the number of selected items, but it doesn't really show that at all. So what is good is regenerating the ribbon metadata. So it says that this can take up to about 15 minutes, but for those cases where I was having issues is making a change, not seeing it reflect right away. This seems like there's a good way to do it. Otherwise, I think that's about everything I wanted to show and talk about. Like I said, cool tool, lots of frustrating parts at the moment, but hopefully they have a good, strong base here to build on, and over the next months and years, we'll see some really, really cool stuff coming out of it. Oh, and Scott Duro, who built the Ribbon Workbench, has been heavily involved helping Microsoft with building out this process. So so don't feel bad for him losing his tool. I think he's happy to not have to maintain it after about 15 years now. Yeah, so any questions from everybody? Anybody? Any thoughts or comments that I missed?